Hi, everyone. My name is Matt Hames, and I'm the Associate Vice President for Digital and Social Strategy at 3Enrollment Marketing. Welcome to part two of a five-part series on the history of Google search when it comes to higher education. Before we get into that, let's just, sorry about that. Let's just talk quickly about 3Enrollment Marketing. It is a place filled with experts who are passionate about higher education. We care about results. We just had an all hands recently where we shared results from some of the institutions that we work with, some of our partners, some of our clients, and just talked about how the results are coming in. It's amazing. There are so many difference makers who work here, working to make a difference in higher education. And I'm so proud to be at this company. Anyway, my all-time favorite quote, and part of the reason for this presentation is this. This is what John Wanamaker said in around the 1960s. Wanamaker department stores. He knew that he had to advertise. He just didn't know how his money was being spent. I've placed this quote on my wall. It's just over there, actually. My hand's not quite in. Just over there on the wall, because we do a lot of digital and we don't really know how that digital is working. But one thing I can tell you, the one thing that I can absolutely tell you is that Google is a massive part about it. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So here is the 5 parts. We're on part 2. Yesterday, we talked about the .edu. Today, we're talking about Google and search engines in general. So let's get into it. Part 2, let me Google that for you. Now, there was a time when there were a bunch of different search engines. There was AltaVista here, right? So you can see AltaVista. There was Ask Jeeves. There was Yahoo. You know, I remember the commercials. There were many, many different search engines. But one came along and kind of just overcame everything with their simplicity, and the page ranking that they used. Page spelt not like it isn't page, it's after the founder of Google. So page ranking used URLs and used backlinks. So if your website was linked to a lot, then that gave it a higher ranking inside of Google. So it was the community basically telling the algorithm what was the best. And that kind of community intelligence has always been like tested and tested and tested. There's this great story about if there's a massive bucket of marbles and everyone can see the marbles and thousands of people guess it, then the average or the mean will be almost the exact number. When a group of people sing, the singing sounds amazing, but individually they might not be great. As a collective, we're much better. So using crowdsourced information helped Google basically become the piping of the internet. Now, I can promise you that Google is the piping of most of the institutions that we work with here at 3E. I get to look at Google Analytics 4 data, and the predominant driver of new users to the traffic is either organic search or direct. So that depends on how people have their cookies set on their site. It depends on how people are using cookies and what devices they're using cookies. For new users and returning visitors, it's not perfect, right? But most of the new users who come to a .edu these days come from organic search. They go to Google. Once they find out about an institution, they go to Google and they type in the institution by name. What they're basically saying is, I'm newly aware of this institution. I have questions. I just don't know what those are. So I'm just going to type in the name and Google is going to help me figure it out. So Google is the piping of the internet, right? We build our .edus to rank high in Google. And most of them do, because if you do a search for an institution, like whatever institution, if you do a search for an institution that's near me called Hamilton College, then what you're you're getting hamilton.edu, because hamilton.edu literally means hamilton.edu.college, right? So the URL is always going to be first, and then it's backlinked in a number of different places that gives it the ranking. So most institutions rank first for their name. Most people, when they search for the institution, eventually find their way to the .edu. That's the plumbing of the internet. We kind of take it for granted. Remember, the search bar, like just the inside of Chrome or whatever your search browser is, didn't always used to be a search engine. You had to type in the URL at the top, or you had to physically go to Google to type in the URL, but you went to Google. Some people still use Yahoo, some people still use Bing. That's fine. There's no judgment here whatsoever. There are a number of different search engines out there in the world right now that you can begin to use. But what I'm saying is that the vast majority of traffic to the .edus, based on the data that I have seen, are coming from Google. So it's won the internet. It continues to win the internet. It is, again, the plumbing of the internet. So of course, we want to try to use SEO, search engine optimization, in any way we possibly can. Hence the launch of blogs. So most institutions have a blog. The notion of a blog is that the title of the blog post becomes the page title, and page titles are hugely important in ranking on Google. So the title of the blog and the page title becomes the URL, and you're more likely to find those kind of long tail searches. So again, if you do a Google search for institution English program, it'll probably take you to the department's homepage, but it might also take you to a blog post about a professor teaching English. In my perfect world, it takes you to a LinkedIn of the professors talking about how their research impacts their pedagogy, but that's a whole different video. I don't want to get off track. SEO is basically telling a algorithm, telling a search engine what information you have on your .edu. So that's how we basically built the internet. We started with a .edu. Then Google came along and said, hey, we can point people to that .edu pretty easily. And so people were pointed to that .edu. And here we are with massive amounts of new user traffic coming to your .edu every single cycle from newly aware people. Applications opened a couple of days ago. There's a bunch of marketing. Most of 3Enrollment Marketing's partner institutions, their campaigns are out running right now, using marketing automation to get inside the email inboxes of prospective students around the country. They are going to be made aware of an institution. They're going to have dinner. They're going to be having dinner. Parents, friends are going to say, where are you thinking about attending university? And they're going to start to list off. They're making their lists. They're making their lists of 10, 5. They've made some summer visits this summer. They still have some summer visits to go. They're making their list. And a lot of people right now are going to Google and typing in the school, and when they type in the institution, they're finding out where it is and a bunch of information about it. So that's basically how Google kind of took over, and it still runs everything. It really does run most of, again, based on the traffic numbers, it pretty much owns higher education. So anyway, that is part 2. So that's Google. Part 3 is the social web. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about how the social web and how those different websites fit into the digital presence. So that's going to be tomorrow. Then we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about the search engine results page, and then the future of asking questions. Is it always going to be like this? So join me tomorrow for part 3, the social web. Thanks for sticking with me. and we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.